Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in studio today by Robert Meyer-Burnett.
Wow, it's a big day, John. Big day today.
There's a lot going on today. Jonathan Voico.
Good morning, everybody.
Chris Carr's here.
Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man ended so good. It was so good.
But, of course, the most important thing about today is Canada-U.S. gold medal game in the Four Nations Cup. I just want to see good hockey, man. It's exciting seeing good hockey, but I know a lot of you don't care about it. That's why I don't talk about hockey too much on this show. Anyway, we got a lot of things we're going to talk about here today, but I want to let you know, we're going to start off the show by talking about a bunch of topics we got lined up, and we got a lot of them. But we're going to get the second half of the show by taking your live comments and questions. If you have a thought, theory, opinion, question, observation, or topic you'd like to hear us discuss, go ahead and fire it on into our tip link at www.streamelement.com/John Campea/tip. Send it on in. We'll get to it in the second part of the show if we deem your topic or question appropriate to be addressed on the show. And by the way, this tip link is good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you're listening to this show later on the day on podcast feeds, either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching this video a little bit later in the day, when we're not live, you can still go ahead and send in a question or a topic. And if you send it in when we're not live, we'll just get around to answering it on the next episode. All right, guys, like I said, we got a lot of stuff we got to cover here today. So let's not waste any time and jump right into it. And the first one's a big one. Deadline is reporting that one of the GOATs, Martin Scorsese, has got his next movie lined up. And it's going to star, obviously, Leonardo DiCaprio, but also Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt. This comes to us from Deadline, who's saying town says aloha to a Hawaii set Goodfellas meets The Departed. Scorsese, DiCaprio, Dwayne Johnson, and Emily Blunt. Top crime drama. They wrote the following. Exclusive. The hot package in town is a pitch for a Martin Scorsese-directed untitled drama that would star Dwayne Johnson, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Emily Blunt. The description, imagine Robert De Niro's Jimmy the Gent character from Goodfellas, but as a ruthless Hawaiian crime boss based on a real figure who battled encroaching rivals for control of organized crime in Hawaii. I wonder who Dwayne Johnson's going to play. Anyway, listen, if I had on my bingo card this morning waking up, announcement of Dwayne Johnson starring in Martin Scorsese film, it would be a good day, but I did not have that on my bingo card. That is not something I expected to see coming. Now, listen, I've said for a long time that I believe Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a guy who has evolved to show he's a very serviceable actor, actually. When you watch movies like Snitch, which I actually think that's the best performance of his career. I love Snitch. I also loved him in Faster. Has nothing to do with the Fast and the Furious franchise. I loved him in that. I really liked him, Pain and Gain. I really liked him in Pain and Gain. He's got that new movie coming out that he's totally physically transformed for that, based on the MMA fighter. I'm trying to remember, guys in the live chat, if you guys remember the name of that movie. But that looks like it's going to be really interesting. But I've often wondered...
Smashing Machine.
Thank you, Smashing Machine. I've often wondered if he'd ever actually, Dave Bautista got his break working with Denis Villeneuve, right? To be in that Blade Runner. I've often wondered, will Dwayne Johnson get that break to actually perform in what could be called a prestige film? Now, look, obviously him and Emily Blunt, I'm not the biggest fan of, what's the stupid Sex Cruise movie? What's it?
Sex Cruise
Definitely
movie?
not Sex Cruise.
What
What's
do you
it called?
think happens on that ride?
Jungle Cruise. Sorry. In that Jungle Cruise movie, Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt had whatever.
You might watch the Pornhub version.
Wow.
Have great chemistry. They do. They have great chemistry.
Apparently so.
Yeah, you thought they were having sex on that boat the whole time.
They probably were. Sorry, John Krasinski. No, I mean, they had great on-screen chemistry in it. They did. And so I'm good with that. But I never would have thought, Chris, that I would wake up and talk about Leonardo DiCaprio, where I'm going to see the new on-screen duo of Leonardo DiCaprio and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. What do you make of this?
I think this is really exciting. I love this. Also, I wanted to make a joke. Smashing Machine. Rob's nickname in high school. What?
Yeah. I was holding back giggles.
Yeah,
On that one.
I needed
Wow.
to. But since we already gone off the rails with Sex Cruise, I thought I'd bring it in.
Smash Machine from Pound Town.
Yeah. So
I was very monogamous.
That's lovely.
in high school.
I love that for you. But
Is
Ray's
that
not
what
in
they
the
called
room, so I had
virginity
to.
back then?
Yes.
Sorry.
So I really enjoy this casting. I think this could be a very fun thing
Engaging
here.
coitus.
I just my big concern here is I hope that Dwayne Johnson will have a little slice of humble pie here and bring on an on-set coach. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that the director is not the only person who is directing actors. A lot of times big A-name celebrities or other folks will have people on set with them to help them run their lines, to make sure that they are hitting those marks and bringing what the director wants, because time is money.
Yeah.
So when they're in their trailers or in their off time, they're working with somebody else to make sure they're delivering exactly what that director needs.
And maybe show up on time.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that we just need to make sure he's doing well here, because I would really like to see him in a prestige film and succeed in such a film. I don't want to watch this and have another moment of, oh yeah, it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson, because he's very good at what he does. And I don't want to shame any actor too who just shows up as themselves over and over again. Many people have made a great career out of that, but I'd love to
Can't
see
do that.
some range.
You
You
can't
know
do
what
that
I mean?
in a Scorsese film.
No, well, see,
Yeah.
one of the great things about this is no matter what, like I have a friend who is a filmmaker who worked on a film with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And while they said Dwayne is actually a very nice guy, they said, like, it doesn't matter though, it's my film. The moment Dwayne Johnson walks onto a set, it's his film, right? Not with Marty Scorsese
Yeah, right.
sitting in the director chair, right? That's a name that even Dwayne Johnson can't go in and, like, you think Martin Scorsese is going to be at all overwhelmed or intimidated or in awe of Dwayne Johnson? Not in the least. And I think Dwayne Johnson's savoring that opportunity. Anyway, what do you think about this news, Rob?
I think it's great. First of all, I love the topic. You know, look, Martin Scorsese making crime thriller movies all
All
the way
day,
back to
all
Mean
day.
Streets. You know, but you know, like you just pointed out, Dwayne Johnson's not a dumb man, and I think, you know, a lot of people forget his turn in Pain and Gain for Michael Bay was really good.
Yeah, it was quite
Like he
good.
created a terrific character, you know,
Yeah.
based on a real existing person. I think Dwayne Johnson is a very smart businessman. He knows that, like, he's doing this because he needs a little bit of help in the career area anyway. You know, he's been a little tarnished. Red One wasn't exactly setting the world on fire. And I think for him, smart move. He clearly, him and Emily Blunt, I'm sure, had a blast making Sex Cruise. And then I think that now they know they're working together again. You've got DiCaprio in this cast. What is this, his 8th movie with Scorsese or something
Oh,
like
it's
that?
getting up there.
I think it's a great idea. And I'll tell you something great. They're going to have, I want to put my name in the hat for doing the DVD special features. Cause I want to go to Hawaii and live there and just hang out on set.
If
Rob,
DVDs
you
are
think
still a
they're gonna
thing.
make a DVD?
Yeah, it's
That
adorable. You
was
think
the
DVDs
joke.
will still be
I
around.
know. Those days are over.
My friend.
It is possible they're going to shoot on film though
Yeah.
with Scorsese.
That's true.
Could
Yeah,
be.
I mean, that would be so much fun.
Anyway,
So
guys,
much fun.
question is for you. What do you think about this? I certainly didn't expect waking up this morning to news of Dwayne Johnson being in a Martin Scorsese film starring alongside of Leonardo DiCaprio, but here it is. Do you think Dwayne Johnson can really capitalize on this opportunity? Whatever you guys think about this, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, Daredevil is coming out. It's less than 2 weeks away now. I'm actually getting really quite excited about it. We talked yesterday about the fact that they're doing something different with their release schedule. They're going to drop the first 2 episodes at once, which isn't unusual. But then at least one point around the middle of the season, they're going to go 1 episode per week, and then all of a sudden have 2 episodes per week. Really interesting. It's going to be kind of neat to see why they made that decision. But we also kind of just mentioned yesterday, I want to make a topic out of this, that word has come out about what the runtimes are going to be for these episodes. There are a lot of Disney Plus shows that I despise, and there's a number of them that I really like. But one of my constant complaints with Disney Plus series has been the unbearable runtime. Because it's one thing for a show like, say, Ted Lasso, which is not meant as a drama. It's meant as a fun, lighthearted, charming, and endearing. You don't necessarily, we go into watching Ted Lasso not for what's the story going on. It's just to spend time with these wonderful characters and whatever. And you don't really need 45 minutes to do that, right? a sitcom, something like that, that's fine. But for big drama series, one of the tricky things is you got to find a way to make each episode feel like it has a definitive beginning, middle, and end. Obviously not the ending of the entire story of the show, but you got to make your episodes in such a way that watching each episode feels like a fulfilling experience. And when I click on a new episode of a Disney Plus show, even the ones that I like, and then I see runtime 31 minutes, minus the 5 or 6 minutes for end credits and previously on, and you're ending up with these episodes that you feel like you just finished popping your popcorn in the microwave and all of a sudden the credits are rolling, right? It's difficult to let each episode feel like it has a beginning, middle, and end. Well, reports are going around right now, and it's being reported on Superhero Hype and other places, that we might have the runtimes for the first 2 episodes of Daredevil. And those runtimes are 58 minutes and 47 minutes. Basically, a feature-length film is being dropped with the first 2 episodes being dropped on the same day. Length does not make something better. Shortness doesn't make it worse. But when you're talking again about TV... Wait a second. Chris just gave me a lot.
I knew I was off camera, and I used my time wisely.
All of a sudden, I saw Chris's head in my periphery like this. Okay. Sorry. Phrasing. Runtime. That, I know. Chris can make something out of that, too.
Yeah, I can, too.
The duration of a feature film
There you go.
is neither made better or worse by, additional minutes or less minutes. But again, when it comes to premium TV, must-watch TV, particularly drama like Daredevil, you got to at least have enough time to give it every episode a beginning, a middle, and an end that then leads you into the next episode that should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And like even sometimes we were talking the other day about Severance. I love Severance.
Great show.
I was a little unsatisfied with the latest episode just because it didn't feel like that. Like you go back to the episode where they were camping, right? That one episode has a beginning, a middle of what happens, and then the resolution of the stuff that went to the end that then opened the door to what happens in the next year.
And you want to watch the next episode when it hits that ending mark.
Exactly. And I love Severance. It's one of my favorite things on TV right now, but I didn't feel like this last episode had that. I just felt like it was here's what happened after that. And it just kind of left it at that. Mm-hmm. So with this having maybe runtimes of 58 minutes, 47 minutes, it gives me the hope that they are actually going to give every episode room to breathe, to make every episode feel like its own piece of content. And that has me excited. Rob, do you think I'm reading too much into that? Maybe it could still feel shortchanged, but I take this as good news. How do you take it?
I think it's good news too, because remember they had the template of 3 seasons of Daredevil before, and those episodes, when you're watching a streaming series on Amazon or Netflix, you're getting full episodes. They understand that it has to be a whole meal. I think that with the problem with what happened with Disney streaming is they didn't start out making like quote unquote normal shows. They're making 8 episodes that cost $250 million. And whereas a normal television series doesn't cost that much. And so the Netflix Daredevil shows or their entire Marvel shows for Netflix have to be the template, because nobody would put up with a 30-minute episode of Daredevil. They're just not, you don't have enough, like you said, you have to make a fulfilling episode of television. And you're not spending as much money, or you shouldn't be, for a Daredevil show, because the effects, you don't have as many effects. I'm not saying you don't have effects at all, but they dropped the scene yesterday of a minute-long scene with the Kingpin, the heat
and
scene.
Matt, yeah.
It was a great scene. I'm like,
I purposely didn't watch it.
Oh, it's great. I was watching this going, this is just as compelling as fighting in a hallway. It's, well, maybe not, but it's still a great scene. And watching these 2 actors just kill it. So I want to see more of this. I think that they would know that the audience would be shortchanged if they tried to pull those Star Wars shenanigans on Daredevil.
Yeah.
So I think it's good. I mean, everything about this show, the fact that they retooled it, the fact that they're leaning into character, and I did watch that scene, and I'm like, if this is the direction they're going with, I am very excited for this show. Very excited.
By the way, it's a big shout out to Mark W for gifting a membership in there. Thank you,
Yay,
Mark. Appreciate that,
Mark.
man.
All right.
Chris, the runtimes here. I mean, look, for all we know, maybe episodes 3, 4, and 5 become 25 minutes, but I don't think that's what they're doing.
Potentially, yeah.
What do you think about this?
It's exciting as long as that time is used well.
Right,
If we're just kind of hemming and hawing around, although this show promises that it's not going to be a bunch of people talking.
Except there's a whole lot of talking in the trailer.
Yeah, except that's what they keep showcasing. I think it's promising as long as we use the time wisely. And I hope that it is a like jumping off point from the previous series, like you were talking about, how we have all this really great stuff already in the back catalog that we went, let's build off of that. Let's rev up into that and do some really great character exploration. Let's really dive into, the atrocities that Muse is committing. Let's really give this a wonderful, almost Penguin-esque treatment. I want this to be a wonderful character-driven story that has high crime, that has great fight scenes, and just happens to have superheroes in it.
Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people would like this new Daredevil series to follow in as many footsteps as the original series did, including maybe some episodic runtimes. It's okay if 1 or 2 are shorter, but just give it full length. Do you like this idea? Maybe you like the shorter episodes. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? One of the big cultural phenomenon shows was Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I was really late to the party until the pandemic hit. Then I got caught up on it, and I was like, initially, first season felt like it was really for a younger audience, but the more that show went, I really got into it. Not a big fan of Legend of Korra, to be honest with you, but it has now been made official. The Hollywood Reporter is reporting that a new Avatar: The Last Airbender animated series has been greenlit at Nickelodeon. It's going to be called Avatar: Seven Havens, and it is being run by the original showrunners. They wrote this: water, earth, fire, and air are combining once again. Nickelodeon has greenlit an animated series set in the world of its beloved Avatar: The Last Airbender. The new show, titled Avatar: Seven Havens, has a 26-episode order and will follow a new Avatar. This series will be the third in the Avatar verse, following the original show and the Legend of Korra. Avatar: Seven Havens, according to the show's description, is, quote unquote, set in a world shattered by a devastating cataclysm. A young earthbender discovers that she is the new Avatar after Korra. But in this dangerous era, that title marks her as humanity's destroyer, not its savior. Hunted by both human and spirit enemies, she and her long-lost twin must uncover the mysterious origins and save the Seven Havens before civilization's last strongholds collapse. So apparently, animation companies already working on this show. Like, apparently work is already underway. They're going to try to get this out in time for like a 20th anniversary. Also, don't forget, there is an Avatar animated movie coming about Aang. That's also going to be kind of coinciding with the 20th anniversary of Avatar dropping and stuff like that. Chris, I know you are the resident big fan of Avatar. I really quite like the original series. I wasn't a big fan of Korra.
You gotta, it revs up. It gets there.
I guess
understand
part of the things I didn't like about Korra, or I didn't like as much about Korra, was that it seemed like civilization in the world of Avatar advanced 500 years from the original series to Korra, even though it's only supposed to be like 100 years later.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the setting of the Aang Avatar. That's why when I read about this, I was kind of hoping it would be about an Avatar prior to Aang, rather than an even more modern world. But still, I think if you're a fan of this show, this has got to be exciting news. I just assumed you'd be excited about it. What do you think about this
I'm
news?
so excited. First, I mean, just to be nerdy for a second, it mirrors the Industrial Revolution. I mean, that's why things kicked up so quickly, is once everyone has access to power, then everyone has this. If it's like if we let everyone have resources, we can all survive and do well. It's really cool. What I love about this is that the original creators are back on board, and we are still exploring various aspects of the Avatar universe all at the same time. We're moving forward, but we're also exploring the past, and I like having those things coincide together because that's a big through line throughout the Avatar series. The entire Avatar thing is that you have this great line, and you have all of these people who came before you that you can connect with and try to gain wisdom from them or learn from them, while also forging your own path as the Avatar. The brilliant thing about this show was that the show matured as the characters did and as the danger got increasingly more real.
Kind of like Harry Potter in a way.
Exactly.
Did that. Yeah.
We have that nice journey with them. So by the end, when Aang is grappling with, am I going to murder a man? Is that what I have to do? He is in a headspace where he's had to grow up so much from the plucky kid we met who got broken out of the ice. I'm really excited to have more of this stuff. I love, love, love this show. I'm going to be Rob right now. Would it surprise you to know that Nickelodeon sent me a steelbook box set
Really?
of this? Yeah. I used to do
Wow.
Avatar videos all the time. And so they sent me a really great collector's edition of everything and the novel of the Kyoshi story. Love, love, love it.
Hey, you did give me a steelbook of Logan's Run.
I did because I love you.
I know.
Rob, did you ever watch the
I
original?
watched the first
animated series?
Airbender, but here's my question. You know, Earth, Air, Fire, and Water. When are they going to add Lilu in the fifth element?
Lilu.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I know people are like, what? That's a 30-year-old joke.
It's a good one, though.
So
It's a good one though.
Yeah.
It works. Yes.
no, I think, look, here was the thing, that there are pop culture touchstones that you hear about and you don't watch. I mean, I'm old. So The Last Airbender is not something that I caught up with, but I did go see the Shamhammers movie, and I was like, what is this? I did not like it.
Oh, it's
So-
the only movie I've ever walked out of.
So that's what made me go back and watch the animated series. No, I have not watched Korra, to be honest. But I thought The Last Airbender was great. I mean, even from the beginning, I thought it was a terrific show. And I get it. I finally got it. I did not understand how M. Night Shyamalan could have made the movie he made from that series. That still is one of the most baffling things to me. But it's whenever they bring the original creators of something back, I think we all win. For the most part.
You know what? I know this drives Chris crazy because I brought this up once before. Just a couple of years ago, I decided to go back and do a rewatch of M. Night's version of Avatar. And I, like everybody else, the first time I watched it in theater, I'm like, what? And I like you, I saw the film before I saw the series.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this? This is horrible. Then, of course, during pandemic, went and watched the series. Then I did a rewatch of the movie. I'm not saying that the movie has been redeemed. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is the second time I watched the movie, having now watched the series, because I hadn't seen the series the first time I saw it, I sat there watching it for the second time and I went, I see what M. Night was trying to do. Like I didn't see that. I didn't see any kind of a plan with the first time I saw it. Watching it the second time, I went, you know what? I see now what M. Night was kind of trying to go for. He just failed spectacularly at it. It's all good. Intentions are great and everything, but you still got to execute. And it's like, I was watching the second time. It's like, oh, you know what? This could have been okay had he executed it. But yes, it is one of the worst films I've ever seen.
I really thought I was going to flip a table there for a second.
Yeah, no, it is
Be like, what are you going to say?
it improved on the animated series. No, it was so bad. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? There is a new Avatar animated series coming about the Avatar coming after Korra, and it's going to be done by the original showrunners. You excited about it? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Severance has become a phenomenon, this show. And now, not only is it big and popular and people love it, and they're doing these marketing gimmicks and train stations with, remember that before this season came out, where all the casts came out and went into the glass box? Well, now apparently Severance, according to Apple, is now the most popular series Apple has ever had, passing Ted Lasso for the most viewed series they've ever done. 9 to 5 Mac writes, Apple says Severance has become its most popular show ever, overtaking Ted Lasso. The latest Nielsen chart showed that Severance was performing well with audiences, and now we have official confirmation from Apple itself. Via Deadline, Apple TV Plus says that Severance has become its most popular show ever, even overtaking its hit comedy Ted Lasso. The service recorded more unique viewers for Severance than any other title in its history, based on viewership in the first month after season 2 premiered. Now look, Apple TV Plus is still, out of all the major streamers, it's still the youngest one. It's the one that's been around the least amount of time, but they have already I think acquitted themselves as the second best series producer. I still think HBO is the best, but Apple, I mean, in such a short amount of time, they have put out such amazing shows. Morning Show, which I thought looked dumb and totally not for me, ended up being absolutely excellent. You've got For All Mankind.
Oh, and they're ramping up Star City, the Russian counterpart.
And they did. I mean, obviously, Ted Lasso was a huge global breakout. Severance is huge, but beyond Severance, like you got Shrinking, which I think is the best show they've ever produced. I mean, Shrinking, I still cannot fathom how good Shrinking is.
Silo?
Silo
is
So good.
so good.
is out there. I mean,
Slow Horses is in.
Slow Horses.
Still need to
People
watch it.
They have such a diversity of shows, and they just seem to constantly knock it out of the park. So, Rob,
Foundation,
I
yeah.
wanted a Foundation. I love Foundation. So, Rob, I want to throw this over to you. What is it about Severance that has made it really connect, apparently, with audiences even more than any of these other Apple shows have?
Well, I think first and foremost, there's an intellectual component. There's the central idea of that show is immediately interesting and compelling. Anybody can understand that. You're going to turn off who and what you are, and you're not going to remember
Anything you did at work.
I mean, that is something that everybody could immediately hear that idea and contemplate. If I was in this situation, what would I do? And I think that if you think about all great movies, Jaws, everybody wonders, if I was Sheriff Brody, would I get on that boat? And I think that
They should have got a bigger one, by the way.
yeah, well, that's what makes for compelling drama. And that show has such a great, interesting central kernel of an idea. And then they take it in ways that even, like, you start thinking about, well, what would happen? But they take you in ways you hadn't thought of yet. And they keep doing things that take that original idea and make it even more interesting to the viewers. And you're like, what's going to happen next?
Right.
And I think that's why I've been a fan of great. I consider Severance science fiction. It's a science fiction show. It really is. It might not be in space, but it does what great speculative fiction does. It takes what does it mean to work in an office with cubicles and things when, the dehumanization of human beings. We've all thought about that. Office space is a different variation on that theme. And so that's why Severance takes this idea we can all relate to, going to work, the drudgery of work, and turning it into something Kafkaesque, nightmarish, science fiction, strangeness, and it just works. And most of all, it's really entertaining.
Yeah. You know what I liken it unto, kind of, in a way, loosely? I liken Severance unto Lost.
Yeah.
In the sense that you start with this incredible premise, right? Like you said, the premise of Severance is put something in your brain where once you go to work, you become somebody else, basically, and you don't have any recollection of work once you leave. But then they compound that with now an ongoing mystery. Great example of which we watched the last episode, and I'm laying in bed and I'm asleep, and I wake up like 15, 20 minutes later and I realize Anne is still up on her phone, just digging through Severance theories, right? And that's something like we kind of got with Lost. So it's got a little bit of that too. Chris, I mean, are you surprised to hear that Severance is already passed over Ted Lasso? And what is it to you that makes this show connect with so many people?
It's a bit of a surprise just because Ted Lasso is that comfort food watch that everyone keeps watching over and over again,
also the
myself
anchor.
included.
It's-
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People talk about that watch Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
So obviously now
It's like it's your gateway drug into Apple TV.
yeah.
But Severance, there is that wonderful impossible problem that we're all trying to solve, the mystery behind it, and it feels like they're hopefully going to stick the landing a bit better than Lost did, because it feels like we're getting more and more hints. But who's to say? Who's to say?
I think they
now?
already know where it's going.
It
That's the
seems like they've got
difference.
that
With Lost,
mapped
they didn't
out.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ben Stiller said they know where it's going and what everything is. It's just
It's a matter of, will that be satisfying to the rest of
Yeah,
us?
yeah.
The other thing that they have going for it too, though, is this duality within Severance. Is how many people do wish, I wish I could go home and not think about my job. I wish that had no factor in my daily life. I wish I could set it and forget it and be done. And so while there are these horrors and atrocities in which we're seeing in Severance and going, what is happening here? Why does this child work here? What is going on? Man, that's weird that they made a fruit melon of somebody's head. We also have this weird kind of moment, though, of, would I go through that procedure? Would I have that if I had experienced horrible loss? Would I go through that if I hated my job that much?
Is the other of you only ever knows the inside of that building, because as soon as you leave, you're back.
Well, and that's
it's a nightmare.
What amount of trauma would make a person go decide to do that? And I feel like that's the really interesting question here is what would push you, the viewer, to go, I could do this?
Yeah.
Or what makes you go, who in their right mind would do this? I feel like that's part of the captivating thing here is just the human study.
All right, guys. Question is for you. Apple TV Plus is now saying that Severance has become their most popular show ever, passing even things like Ted Lasso. Does that surprise you? Are you one of the many people hooked on Severance? If so, what is it about this show that hooks you on? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. Listen, we have already done a lot, but we still have a lot more to get to, including Marvel has stopped development on a number of their higher profile shows. We're going to talk about which ones and why. Amazon has now gained creative control of the James Bond franchise. Never thought this would happen, but it kind of had to happen. We're going to talk about that and a little game of what's more likely. We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Birddogs. Guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's episode, Birddogs. You know what I hate? Dress pants. They're stiff, they're uncomfortable, and they always feel like they're fighting against me. But then I found Birddogs, and let me tell you, it's been a total game changer. These pants fit like a dream, giving you all the comfort of gym wear while still looking sharp enough for work or a night out. I wear my Birddogs everywhere, lounging at home, running errands, or even a night out at the game. The fit? Spot on. You get to pick your exact waist and length, so no awkward bagginess or tight spots. And unlike other high-end brands like Lululemon or Vuori, Birddogs skip that shiny, weird-looking material, just straight-up premium comfort. And let's talk for a second about their classic quarter zip, probably my favorite thing they make. I threw it on the other day for a casual dinner and it looked sharp, but I was comfortable as if I was wearing pajamas. It's that good. For a limited time, our listeners get a free hat with every order when you use the code John Campea at birddogs.com. Get their best-selling hat completely free when you use the code John Campea at birddogs.com. Support our show and let them know we sent you. And thank you to our friends at Birddogs for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, listen. Time for us to play a little game of what's more likely. I jump into the community section of our, we'll now call the posts section of our YouTube channel, where every couple of days I ask you guys to send in a what's more likely scenario. We pick 4 or 5 of them out and address them, and we're going to see what you guys sent in to us. So, Jonathan, what do we got up first?
Okay, first from Sir QXXVII says, John, what's more likely to win the higher number of awards at the Oscars this year, Anora or Wicked?
Ooh. Well, okay, so first you got to play the numbers game, because I'm pretty sure Wicked has like 10 nominations and Anora has 6.
So they'd have to win all of theirs and they'd have to lose.
And then, yeah, so there's a bit of a numbers game. Plus, Wicked has a really good shot at a number of the technical ones.
That's the
like
thing.
Set design, hair and costuming, visual effects, stuff like that. Where Nora is up for the big ones, but the big ones are going to be the harder ones to win.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a ledge and say, I still want to say Nora, but I just because of the technical aspect, I'm going to say Wicked will win more Academy Awards. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, Wicked. They're going to sweep those technicals. I think if it's between the two of those, if those are your options, Wicked would take them, I think.
Like, I think Nora's the better film.
Oh, absolutely.
And I really like Wicked. I a lot, but I think Rob, what do you think?
100% Wicked. I mean, it's everyone, people always sleep on that. But like, if you're doing an Oscar pool, look at how Dune swept technical awards.
A whole bunch of technicals, yeah. Ended up with 6 Academy Awards.
Yeah, won 6 Academy. Even Mad Max Fury Road won like 4 Academy Awards in those technical. That Wicked will take it. And by the way, that has nothing to do. Anora's not up for the same technical awards.
That's the thing.
Yes, yeah.
So,
that's the thing.
You can't.
Uphill battle.
All right. What do we got up next?
Okay. James Desi says, Rob, what's more likely, Amazon selling Bond or Sony selling Spider-Man?
Sony selling Spider-Man.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: Amazon basically inherited Bond, and now we'll talk about it. But yes, Sony selling Spider-Man.
Chris,
I mean, I would have thought differently, but I agree.
Yeah.
Amazon selling Bond
Yeah.
is the more likely. Again, we're going to talk about this topic a little bit more later on because there is no reality in the multiverse that Sony sells Spider-Man. It's never going to happen. They make way too much money off of this. They will never, ever, ever let that go. Unless like Marvel, like I've always said, the amount of money Marvel would have to offer Sony for that far exceeds what Marvel thinks it's worth. And so it will, all it's going to take is Amazon to have 3 failure films in a row. They'll sell it. I just don't think Sony will ever do it. So we'll differ on this
The difference is that there's a buyer for Spider-Man and there's no buyer for Bond.
There
Yeah.
would be. If Amazon suddenly put it on the market, there would be.
What if Disney bought Bond from Amazon?
No.
Bum, bum, bum.
The thing is, Amazon owns the Bond library. They'll never sell it.
Again, 3 failure films in a row. Sony can put out 3 failure films. It doesn't matter because they still got Marvel making films for them and making the money. Anyway, all right. What's next?
All right. We got Sarah, I think, says, Chris, what's more likely? Avengers Doomsday makes 2 billies or Avengers Secret Wars makes 3 billion worldwide?
Ooh.
Secret Wars makes 3 or Doomsday makes 2.
And our pipeline is Doomsday Secret Wars.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good question.
Let's be positive about Secret Wars. Let's
Say
say
it
that
makes
it's got
3?
set up and it launches up in there.
Boy, 3. Boy.
Yeah.
That's an insane number, but sure.
Okay. I'll go on record and say I don't think Secret Wars makes 3 billion, but I think it's more likely that Secret Wars makes 3 than Doomsday makes 2. Doomsday is going to have to be a part of the process that builds Marvel back up.
Exactly.
So I can see Doomsday absolutely making 1 billion and maybe a lot. And if it's great, that will set up Secret Wars. So I don't think Doomsday makes 2, and I don't think Secret Wars makes 3. But I think it's more likely that Secret Wars makes 3. Rob, what do you think?
I don't think either one of those movies are going to reach that. Those
which is more
milestones.
likely?
But yeah, since I have to pick one, I would pick Secret Wars making 3 billion because, and again, Marvel has such an uphill battle to climb. I mean, Endgame and Infinity War come off of movies that were really successful and beloved. What do they have that's successful and beloved now? I mean, Marvel is in a precarious position, and I think if everybody thinks that these Avengers movies are going to gross anywhere near what the last 4 Avengers movies grossed, they're dreaming.
Now, the landscape looks different. If Daredevil, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four are all beloved, that changes the landscape.
But I don't think to the tune of 2 or 3 billion.
I also agree with you on
no.
that.
It may be 1.5. If they might be able to reach Avengers 1 and 2, Avengers and Age of Ultron numbers if they're lucky.
Yeah.
So
All
we'll
right.
see.
What's next?
Okay, James asks, what's more likely, John, National Treasure 3 or Sherlock Holmes 3?
You know what? It's funny because both of those over the past couple of years, there have been multiple times where somebody at the studio says, we're definitely making National Treasure 3. We're definitely making Sherlock Holmes 3. And then nothing. I think the more likely is Sherlock Holmes 3. I mean, because the reports we've heard come out of that in the last couple of years seem a little bit more solid. We know that Jude Law does want to do it. We know that Robert Downey Jr. does want to do it. We know that Guy Ritchie does want to do it. And the reality is right now, I will forever be a Nicolas Cage fan, but the reality is right now, all of those names are more bankable than Nicolas Cage at the moment. And yeah, I think the more likely is Sherlock Holmes. Chris?
I would probably go with Sherlock Holmes just because the television show, what was it, Edge of History, that they did on Disney Plus was canceled after 1 season as well.
I don't even remember it.
Yeah, so I feel like now Sherlock Holmes maybe has a little bit more momentum.
Oh yeah, they did that National Treasure
It was a show,
offshoot
yeah.
show. Right, that instantly went away and nobody even remembers it. Wasn't Catherine Zeta-Jones in there?
She was.
Yeah, nobody remembers it. That's a
National
good
Treasure
point.
4. They're on the hunt to find that show.
Oh wow!
The mystery of
They
whatever
wrote it on
happened
the
to that
back of the
show.
Yeah.
Rob, what's more likely, National Treasure 3 or Sherlock
I think
Holmes
definitely
3?
Sherlock Holmes. You know, because the thing about Guy Ritchie is he's been incredibly prolific of late.
Yeah.
You know, doing all different kinds of things.
He's made some really good films, although not tremendously successful films.
No, but I do think that the Sherlock Holmes franchise, I like that franchise.
I do too.
It's really good, and I think that those actors getting them together, I think they do it. And then you have to get Jerry Bruckheimer. Is he going to do? I don't see him doing. I think that TV series killed any momentum.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Because I know Bruckheimer was interested in doing it.
Yeah.
And that you're right. I think the series might have killed that. All right, what do we got? Last one?
Last one here from Dingus says, Rob, what's more likely, Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, or Toby and Andrew Spider-Man appear in Secret Wars? I kind of feel it.
I think Andrew and Toby appearing.
Is the more likely?
Yeah, I do because Hugh Jackman, like he said, look, I'd love to see an old man Wolverine movie, and so maybe he could. But I think that Toby and Andrew, the fact is their movie outgrossed Deadpool and Wolverine. So I think
Big time.
I think there's more of an incentive to get those three Spider-Men back together to fight.
Chris?
I mean, I feel like everybody is the answer here, but yeah, I'd go with the Spider Boys.
I'm kind of the opposite in the sense that I don't think any of them appear. I think No
That
Way
wasn't the
Home.
question.
I think No Way Home was the swan song for Toby and Andrew, and I think Deadpool and Wolverine was one last hurrah for Hugh Jackman. But I think the more likely one would be the Andrew and Toby. Because I just really do think definitively Hugh's gone. I don't know that as a fact. That's just me as a fan guessing. I could be wrong, but I think it's just more definitive that I don't really think Toby has a lot of interest to come back again, to be honest. And Andrew always says, where Toby goes, I'll follow. But I think it's more likely they can do it for Secret Wars. So I'm going to agree with you on that. And all right, guys, that'll wrap up this installment of What's More Likely. Thank you guys to everybody who sent in those scenarios, and we'll do it again next week. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? Sticking on the topic of Marvel, because we were just talking about the What's More Likely scenario there. Marvel, we keep hearing tons of reports about now they're doing this show and this show and this show and this show. I mean, it's not Marvel itself saying it, but we hear a lot of these reports coming out. Well, some of the shows that were being worked on or were at least being looked at were shows like Strange Academy. We've talked about that a couple of times. Nova. We just recently talked about that because there was the rumor mill that went out there that Henry Cavill was going to do it, that I said I did not believe. And a show called Terror Inc. Well, Deadline this morning has officially reported that Marvel has paused development on Nova, Strange Academy, and Terror Inc. TV series. It writes the following. Marvel Television has paused development on 3 major projects, Nova, Strange Academy, and Terror Inc. But this is important here. Sources stressed to Deadline that these projects were never officially greenlit anyway, and may still come to fruition at some point in the future, but they did not follow the traditional television development process. They didn't have showrunners. They had executive committees making decisions about what things to do. They kind of wanted to approach making TV series the same way they did movies because they just thought, it's all the same thing. And then they realized, it's not the same thing. So they started to employ a more traditional showrunner, not just a traditional showrunner for each show, but they also started traditional development process. Did you guys realize that 9 out of every TV shows that get developed never make it to air? Do you ever hear of the phrase pilot season? Yeah, that's a whole ton of shows that actually make it so far that they actually get some money to develop a pilot episode, but then most of those never make it to air either. Then the networks will pick out 1 or 2. Like our friend Aaron Cummings has been in, oh my God. I mean, if she could tell you guys the stories about some of the potentially high profile shows she's been in pilots for with some of the biggest names in the business that never got around to ever getting picked up. But Marvel decided, let's follow that traditional development path, which meant they're going to develop shows Like the new guy, Brad Winderbaum, is that his name? The new kind of head of television and animation for Marvel?
I think I don't know.
He basically was saying that, like, we are going to get some scripts written, get things developed for things that never happen. And so with that understanding, and combine that with what Bob Iger said a little over a year ago, that, hey, Marvel's fall into a thing where we've created too much stuff. We've got to pare back a little bit on the quantity, focus a little bit more on the quality. And you combine that with this saying, hey, we're going to develop things that never actually get a green light. And it sounds like these series never got a green light in the first place. So some of these sound cool, but frankly, Disney Plus's Marvel stuff has been so hit and miss that I'm not lamenting that we're not going to get it. Like, would I be interested in these shows? Of course I would be. But I'm not lamenting that it doesn't seem we're getting them. Rob, what do you think about this report? And what do you take away from it?
You know what? None of these shows sounded particularly interesting to me. And I think one of the things that we see is that eventually they want to take our franchises, these big franchises that work on the big screen or they've worked on TV before, and then they become shadows of their former selves, and they use other television tropes. Like, for instance, we're finally going to get a Starfleet Academy show.
Right.
So let's take let's put this thing in school. You know, like the Strange Academy. Is that what they're going to do? The new thing of sorcerers coming to, is that what it's like, do we need that? Like, it's just another show in school. And that's a trope. I understand that that's what they want to do. But the problem is, I think it dilutes the original. It dilutes the idea of the Sorcerer Supreme. And it brings it, because everyone's like, it'll be like the Harry Potter TV series set in the MCU. And it's something else. So I'm like, get rid of all this stuff. Focus on your core brand and give me a great show. You know, and that's what I want. And I don't think that doing spin-offs of all this stuff, unless you have a really solid vision. If you have a showrunner that comes in and says, I have an idea, and they've developed this idea and made it great, but they don't do that. You can't reverse. They're like, we're going to make this and we're going to do it. Corporates decided we're going to do these things because analytics say we have to have this. You're never going to get a good show out of that.
But Strange Academy was in and of itself based on pre-existing property, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just something they were making up for
It's
Disney
true.
Plus.
No, it's a newer property, but it is pre-existing.
Yeah, but
and I kind of am with Rob on this, but I also love the idea of Strange Academy because you can narratively make this make sense too. Of, well, all those sorcerers were murdered.
Yeah, they gotta
everyone was
rebuild this.
murdered.
Yeah.
that's
So
true.
we need to build up who our next fleet of sorcerers and magic wielders are. So there was a rhyme and reason to it. And then you also could find placeholders for some of our kind of member-berry characters, for lack of a better term. I would love, we talked about before, having Man-Thing as a horticulturist on the show. I would love having Madison on there doing counseling work or something like that.
School counselor
I think
Madison.
it's hilarious.
Goat tending.
I think goat tending would be incredible.
She had a goat.
Yeah, she had a
Something to do
goat.
with a goat.
I think you can do some things there, but to Rob's point, you do want them to be quality shows that
Yeah.
aren't just we're making something for the sake of making something, which was Marvel's problem in previous years, where it was just, yeah, let's do a thing. Let's put these characters in it. As long as they are moving forward with a scalpel and being very precise about what they are cutting, what they are keeping, I feel like that's the bigger thing. So if they're working these in a traditional television kind of medium of doing the let's workshop this, let's have in these writers, let's see how a pilot goes, I'm interested in that as long as it ends up with a great end product. I won't be heartbroken if I don't get these things. I just think they're cool. Strange Academy is really cool and fun. I like it.
And it doesn't look like we're going to get,
I know.
maybe we get some kind of an echo of it in a feature film at some point. Because you're right. They're going to have to address, like in terms of Strange Academy, they are going to have to address a lot of sorcerers got murdered. A lot of sorcerers got dead. They caught a bad case of the deads, as Wolverine would say.
and Multiverse of Madness made a lot of money.
It made almost $1 billion.
It made almost $1 billion,
Yeah.
and it plus what Doctor Strange did. I'm really surprised that, you know, we're not getting a Doctor Strange, a third one, before we launch into Doomsday and Secret
Yeah.
Wars.
I'm
It's-
also, this is a side quest. I'm really sick of him getting relegated to being a bad guy on What If.
Yeah,
I'm so bored by it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've done that before
Yeah.
right, already. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, many people kind of like the idea of Marvel kind of paring back how much the glut of content they put out, but There are also some people kind of looking forward to Strange Academy or Nova or Tearing. Whatever. How do you guys feel about it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comments below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Now, many of you know that some time ago, Amazon, MGM, bought the library and the distribution and production rights to James Bond. But it wasn't that big of a shift because the Broccoli family, who have been the stewards of the Bond character for 60 years, long time, were still in creative control. Now, we've also talked about some stories lately where it didn't sound like the Broccolis and Amazon could come together on a creative vision at all, and there was a lot of tension, hence a stalemate, nothing moving forward. To which we said on this show, guys, you're leaving too much money on the table, figure something out. Well, it looks like they figured something out, and it's not the something I thought it was going to be. The Broccolis are out. Now, the Broccolis are still technically co-owners of the James Bond property, but they no longer have creative control over the character. Amazon MGM are now in full control creatively of James Bond. Deadline wrote this: James Bond shocker. Amazon MGM Studios takes creative control of spy franchise as producers Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, quote unquote, step back. In news that will send shockwaves through the industry, longtime James Bond producers Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli are relinquishing control of the beloved spy franchise and handing the reins to Amazon MGM Studios, also known as they got given a really big check. As part of the arrangement revealed Thursday, Amazon and the producers have formed a new joint venture to house the Bond intellectual property, with Broccoli and Wilson remaining as co-owners of the franchise. But don't be mistaken, they're not really going to be involved. Wilson and Broccoli have already kind of said, we're now going to dedicate our time to our philanthropy projects and to charitable stuff and all that kind of stuff. Amazon is now going to dictate and direct what's going to happen with James Bond. Now, a lot of people, even in our own live chat this morning, have lamented this and decried the end of Bond and that this was all terrible news. To which I'm not saying it's going to be great, but I wanted to remind everybody, guys, this is why I said in the live chat before the show started, I said, why all the negativity? I mean, nobody here is mentioning this is the studio that just gave us Fallout, that got nominated for best, a video game series, just got nominated for best drama at the Emmys. This is the network that gives us The Boys and Bosch and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Goliath and Man in the Tall Castle and on and on and on. This studio's made some really good stuff. Not to the point that I'd say this is a great day for Bond, but it's also not like Uwe Boll just got control of the Bond franchise, because people are talking as if Uwe Boll just got control of the Bond franchise. I think this is a huge story. Now we'll at some point now finally get some movement on a Bond thing, because now there's no more gridlock. Rob, there's nobody I personally know that loves the Bond franchise as much as you. As somebody who hasn't been exactly thrilled with Bond the last couple of outings.
No.
I've been more pro on the recent Bond films than you. You've really not been thrilled with them. What do you think about this new development that Amazon MGM have now taken over, not just the producing reins, but they've now got full creative control of Bond? How do you feel about this?
Well, okay, here's the thing. Like, in the 60s, the James Bond film series set the tone. It was a trailblazing franchise that most people, it showed the world that was the middle class was built in the 50s in the wake of World War II. The James Bond franchise gave America and the world something to dream about. Every man who is now a middle class guy raising his kids wanted to be James Bond, to be a jet setting man who knew everything. He knew what the proper temperature to eat caviar was and which champagne to drink and all that, or maybe the reverse, which temperature. But anyway, then the Bond franchise has now been playing catch-up for the last 50 years. I love the James Bond franchise. I think the Daniel Craig era was a mixed bag. I think Casino Royale is by far the best film.
That was my favorite of the bunch.
Series.
I also love Skyfall, though.
Skyfall's a movie where James Bond fails. The entire
And I
movie.
think that's a good thing.
But yes, and some people do. It made $1 billion. It's the most highest grossing Bond film ever. And Adele's theme song's great. But here's the thing. Why this actually excites me. And I tweeted this, but people misconstrued what I was saying. And you brought something up. I wrote, give it to Nolan. Hashtag 007. People thought I meant Christopher Nolan. No. Jonathan Nolan. Mr. Fallout himself.
Yeah.
And his wife, Lisa Joy. They have a creator in their midst.
That's a really good thought.
In their midst, whose brother can come in and direct the pilot for whatever Bond show that they do. And I think that what's happened is James Bond was stodgy. And I love Barbara Broccoli. She'd been working on the Bond franchise since she was a little girl. Michael Wilson's like 80. What you need is a creative team that has a vision for Bond. The same way that Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy had a vision for Fallout, I think that Amazon has in their midst, as you pointed out. Look, I watched the first episode of season 3 of Reacher. I stayed up till midnight, watched it. I think Amazon has the power to get whatever creative team in there. And I think they're going to exploit it and do interesting things. Look, I said once on this show years ago, wouldn't it be cool to do a show about Spectre? You know, with the Supreme Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, for Revenge and Extortion, and show the origins of Spectre going all the way back into like the 1800s. And you could do, that was in the 60s, Spectre was Bond's big bad. Blofeld headed up Spectre. And you could do the whole history, but you need visionaries. So I think Amazon is now in a position, and it already has people in their midst. I would say Jonathan Nolan should be the guy, because his brother might be interested in coming in and helping out a bit. I mean, he's never done a TV pilot before. If Chris Nolan,
you're talking like you're convinced this is now going to become a television series
or a movie,
right?
But I think they're going to do both. I think, look, do a Spectre TV series. I think James Bond as a film series has passed its prime. As M said in GoldenEye, James Bond is a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, product of the Cold War. And it's true.
Which is true. It's actually accurately true.
You have to reinvent the Bond franchise. And why not? Look, they're taking all my favorite movies, like Presumed Innocent from 1990. Let's turn it into a TV show. I mean, James Bond has 25 movies. James Bond died in No Time to Die. And at the end of that movie, it says James Bond will return. Yes. Give him, it's a new era. Are you going to make another James Bond movie? No. Get a visionary to do a 10-episode globe-trotting James Bond series that they spent $250 million on and have a creative visionary behind it like a Jonathan Nolan. I'm all for it. Bring it on.
See, I don't think it has to be Jonathan Nolan.
No, it doesn't.
But somebody like Jonathan Nolan.
Sure.
I'm going to disagree with you on the sense of see, I still think James Bond should exclusively be for prime big tentpole event films. And then I'm okay with the idea of like a Spectre series. And why not start telling the story some other double O's? I mean, you get the opportunity.
Totally. The only thing they need to retain is the James Bond, the 007 logo, and the theme.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, here's the other thing, too. I'm already hearing this cacophony. And by the way, this might end up being terrible. But I keep hearing this cacophony right now of like, they're going to ruin Bond. You know what? When it was announced that Amazon was doing The Boys, all I heard was everybody saying, Amazon's going to ruin The Boys. How'd that turn out? When they announced that Amazon was doing Fallout, everybody says Amazon's going to ruin Fallout. How did that turn out? I'm just saying, do they swing and hit a home run every single time? No, nobody does.
Look at season 1 of Rings of Power.
Look, yeah, but you know what they did
But then they got their footing.
They got their shit together and they actually made some big improvements in season 2.
Robert.
Look, all I'm saying is that they have a history where they have knocked a couple out of the park, and this could be one. I know, Chris, what do you think about this whole thing? I mean, MGM and Amazon now have creative control Bond.
It's very interesting. I was honestly mostly just floored about Broccoli leaving. That was the thing that I kept clinging
blew my
on to.
mind.
Yeah.
They made 25 movies since 1962.
But all of the rhetoric made it seem like they were going to cling on there and keep fighting for this.
They got their check.
That's
They got
probably
what
what
they're gonna
happened.
get
Yeah,
anyway,
they got
and
their
then
money and they're
without
going
the
to go.
aggravation.
I'm a big wait and see kind of person on things like this. They have, I think Amazon has a fairly good track record, like you just brought up with their shows and everything. I'm interested to see how this pans out with theatrical releases versus making this a televised series, or if they're mixing and matching and everything as well. The big thing that I keep seeing in the chat is going back to, oh, they're going to give us a female Bond.
I'm sorry, did I miss something? Did they make Reacher a girl?
No.
Oh, really?
Like-
Because the way everybody's talking in this is like Amazon takes characters and does gender swaps on them. No, they don't.
I'm so confused. And
I can't
also,
think of one thing where they've done that.
By the way,
we've already had a 00 agent who's a woman.
yeah,
And
but that's a double O.
James
She wasn't
Bond
James
is
Bond.
going to stay James Bond.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get Jane Bond. I don't think anything like that's going to happen. And also, what a weird thing to be worried about right now. I'd rather go, hey, is it going to be a TV show or a movie? Hey, how are they going to move this forward? Are they going to take that line about that relic from the Cold War and modernize thing? How are they going to play with this? I wouldn't be so focused on, I bet they're giving me a girl. I want to go into this thinking, what are they going to do with James Bond and all of these other properties, and how are they going to modernize him and how this is going to happen?
by the way, John, I just want to point out, when I was doing our old haunt, the movie trivia Schmodown, they tried a James Bond category. It failed. Why? Because nobody who played the movie trivia Schmodown or the viewers cared. James Bond needs to be reinvented. Like Skyfall made $1 billion. But we have a generation of people that have no attachment to James Bond. I grew up with James Bond as a little kid. I wanted to be James Bond. I saw James Bond movies. They were tonight on the ABC Sunday night movie. Sean Connery is, everybody watched James Bond. Nowadays people have Bourne. They have Reacher. They have Mission Impossible. There's all these other franchises that have eclipsed the Bond franchise.
But I will say
popularity.
this. If you take the last Mission Impossible and you take the last Bourne, the last James Bond made more than any of those. Like the last James Bond movie made $775 million.
No, it did. It did.
So I wouldn't say it eclipsed Mission Impossible.
But in terms of people, look, I think that Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 was like a mid-level Bond movie. It was the way, so it wasn't even a great Mission Impossible movie. Maybe the next one will be. That's the thing about Bond is if you look at the 25 movies, there's probably 5 of them that are awesome movies. A lot of them are really good, but there's a few that aren't good.
That's why, like, to that
Actually, more than a
point,
few.
when they're like, oh, they're going to ruin Bond, it's like Bond has ruined Bond.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
You know what I really would like them to do with Bond? I think go get a younger Bond. I don't mean in his early 20s, but I mean get a relatively younger Bond, and give us kind of like a Casino Royale new origin story for him. I would like to see him done in the vein of a Captain America, in the sense of a man out of time. Not that he was frozen, not
Sure,
that he's
yeah.
Austin Powers and was sent
yeah.
into space in the 60s, right? But that he is a character who still has some of those more antiquated characteristics that would be a part of the traditional James Bond, but see how that functions in the modern context. That could be interesting.
Well, you just nailed the problem. The character has a huge problem in that the character of Bond was created and exists in a world that no longer exists.
Yes.
The world is completely changed. And we now have asymmetric warfare. There isn't the delineation between king and country or queen and country is way different than it was when Bond was created. The whole planet is different. So how do you make James Bond work? Because James Bond is inherently British. James Bond works for MI6. He's fighting for the crown. How do you make that work in this day and age and make it credible? I don't know.
I think you play into I like the idea of maintaining some of those traditional Bond characteristics, but lean into that. This makes him an oddity, almost like a Crocodile Dundee coming to America, right?
Right.
It makes it, and don't shy away from how this is really a juxtaposition. Like Bond is not, he's kind of not a man of this era, but he's in this era. And I think they should lean into that.
And the thing is, the Bond franchise itself, do you go the Moonraker route and have Hugo Drax in his orbiting space station and he's using the poison he derives from orchids to exterminate everybody on Earth so he can build his master race? I mean, that was a Bond movie, which followed up Spy Who Loved Me, which was basically a remake of. Or you go to From Russia with Love and you make it much smaller.
I think, and follow me, guys, I think he should be an influencer.
Should be what?
An influencer.
Get out.
Influencer Bond.
Influencer Bond.
Yeah. I think that's the way to go.
Double O TikTok.
There you go. It already works.
The funny thing is we've seen so many great spy thriller shows now, whether it's something like Reacher, whether it's The Diplomat, whatever. Streaming is actually leaning into the political, the geopolitical. We got 0 Day with Robert De Niro, which just dropped. I think the time is ripe to move Bond into an extended, modern, political thriller realm.
I agree. Again, I'm just saying, even though it's a new era, I just want to see some of those core James Bond characteristics somehow, some way, still be maintained.
I think a lot of those could be carried over. I mean, beyond the womanizing, like you were saying, like he's a connoisseur. You know, the guy is like, what was his rank in the Navy?
Commander.
He's a commander. I mean, so the guy should be worldly, right?
Oh, he is. Yeah.
But you know, there's just some elements that just don't work necessarily.
Well, plus the thing about James Bond is he knows that any mission he's going to die.
Yeah.
So he's a connoisseur of life. He loves the best food. He loves the best drink. He loves the best women. He loves the best cars. And he should be unapologetic about that because at any moment he will die. And he's fighting for all of us. That's why he drinks in everything that life has to offer.
Literally and figuratively.
That's right.
Literally and figuratively. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Amazon is now in creative control of James Bond. Some who maybe haven't liked the last couple of James Bond might think this is a great thing. Some who may be nervous about Amazon taking it over, even though they've had some pretty big wins, might think that's a point of concern. Will it work out good? Will they try to overextend it? Like, will they try all of a sudden come out of the gate and have 5 James Bond franchises and all this kind of stuff? Or will they try to keep it sparse and try to keep its value? I mean, I just don't know. How do you think they're going to approach it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, it's time for us to get on to the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Indeed. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Indeed. Okay, so you just realized your business needed to hire somebody like yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for the right candidates so you can reach the best talent faster. And it works. Indeed's data shows that sponsored jobs get 45% more application than non-sponsored jobs. The thing I'm impressed most with Indeed is how fast it makes hiring. When I was looking to hire somebody for the John Campea Show, the process felt slow and overwhelming. I hate it. I wish I had used Indeed. And you want to know how fast Indeed is? In just the minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed worldwide. So don't wait. Speed up your hiring now with Indeed. And for listeners of this show, you get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Campea. Just go to Indeed.com/Campea and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed here. That's Indeed.com/Campea. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. And thank you to our friends at Indeed for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to the most important part of our show, which is taking your live comments and questions. Jonathan, what we got up first?
Calvin says, John, the way vibranium works changed throughout the years. In Cap 1, there's a scene where Peggy shoots at Steve to test the shield, and vibranium absorbs everything. The bullet hits and fell straight to the like coins. They changed that
Just
later.
get over this, guys. Get over it. The movies have showed over and over and over again that shield, Captain America's shield, when he gets hit, he goes flying. It's not like the shield just absorbs it and everything stands still. The movies have shown it over and over again. Please get over this thing. All right, what's next?
They'll never. Lebowski's rug. Oh, that poor rug.
That poor rug.
Oh. Hi, John, longtime listener. Thanks for much needed laughs. I was wondering if you've seen the new psychedelic film, A Trip Elsewhere. It's a hoot. Lovely, poignant film. Now finally on many channels, including Tubi. Also, have you ever done psychedelics?
I'm not straight edge, but I'm pretty close. I've never done drugs. I don't smoke. I don't drink. All that kind of stuff. So no, I've actually never even heard of this show.
Me either.
And I've never turned on Tubi. I'm not criticizing Tubi at all. I've just never tried it. Never loaded it up, never put it on my Roku's or Chromecasts or Apple TVs or anything. So I've never tried. Have either of you guys watched this?
No.
I've never even heard of it, to be honest with you. But this is one of the great things about hearing from our audience is that I get exposed to things that I haven't heard of before. All right, what's next?
Imagine Jim says in Cap 4, the leader is referred to as the buyer and has done a lot of it in the background. The Ant-Man 2 Sonny Birch references, the buyer wanting Hank's labs. Do you think this could be a retcon to finally give an answer to who the buyer was in Ant-Man 2?
No, I don't.
I think that was a different situation.
I think ultimately for Ant-Man 2, it just wasn't important who it was. It was irrelevant who it was. So no, I don't think they were trying to tiptoe around somehow connecting that to the events of that. Because don't forget, like at that point of Ant-Man 2, Samuel Stearns was more under control and more contained. Like there was a different situation. So no, I mean, who knows? Kevin Feige could come out and say they retcon things to make it connect, but as a fan, I don't think that's what they did. All right, what's next?
All right, this one's interesting. Heisenberg says, one of two, hi, John and company. Hope you're well. You might have read the news last year that Disney India and Reliance Jio had signed a merger. Now the merger has been fully completed, and the respective streaming apps, Disney Plus, Hotstar, and Jio Cinema, have merged.
Interesting.
Yeah, into a single app, Jio Hotstar. Now we have the whole Disney Plus, excluding IMAX Enhanced, HBO, WB, and most of Universal and Paramount titles on one single app at a max price of $18 per year. In the immortal voice of John Lovitz, jealous?
Jealous? That's insane.
I know.
Did you see him on SNL? How they sat him outside of the studio?
Oh, yeah, at the 50th anniversary thing. That is crazy.
That's
I'm going to assume it also has all the Hulu content on it.
I would assume.
That
very
is
affordable.
nuts. So to answer your base primary question, yes, jealous. That would be great to have all that for $18. That's insane. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, John, would you say Robin is Dick Grayson? Is Robin is Dick Grayson? To me, he's always been Robin. He's the original.
That is a great question. Except there's a fundamental difference. Robin's the sidekick.
Yeah.
Sidekicks can be replaced. Like Robin is a position, right? It's the sidekick of Batman.
Yeah.
And it's also an age limited position where by necessity, at some point, somebody else is going to have to be Robin, right? Batman is not a position. It's the identity of Bruce Wayne. It is who Bruce Wayne is. Captain America is not some position that was created and then somebody went out, well, who do we hire to be Captain America? No. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Bruce Wayne is Batman. So I understand the comparison you're trying to make, but it doesn't apply because it's two totally different scenarios. So no, I would not say that Dick Grayson is Robin is Dick Grayson at all. Robin is a sidekick position to the Batman and other people can be it. All right, but you can't change who Batman is.
Much like Falcon. You could just change who Falcon is.
Yeah. All right, what's
we
next?
Got Farton Lawrence. Curious, where did the notion come from that they were trying to make Falcon cool? Doesn't that diminish the passing of the shield by Steve? He had his own reasons. Vero?
I have no idea what it is you're
I'm
asking.
not sure either. Like the idea of Falcon being cool or something? I don't know. I mean,
Falcon was cool.
Yeah.
Sam Wilson is a cool character, and Falcon, Sam Wilson Falcon, I've loved that character since he showed up in Winter Soldier. I love that he was the Avengers guy in the first Ant-Man. I just think the character's always been cool, and I think it's kind of disrespectful to his character that, oh, well, he's not cool. Well, in order to make him cool, we got to call him Captain America now. I think that's ridiculous. He's great. Anthony Mackie is great. But that's just my personal take on it. All right, what's next?
Oh, this one's funny. Vancouver Canucks fan says, have you seen the John Candy movie, Uncle Buck? Have we seen Uncle Buck? I feel that movie is criminally underrated. It's so funny, yet I don't hear many people talk about it these days.
You clearly don't hang out with Ann Campea. Ann Campea loves Uncle Buck. Yeah, no, it is. First of all, I don't believe it's an underrated film. Whenever any conversation I'm in and Uncle Buck does come up, almost everybody I've ever talked to loves it. So I don't know. It might be an underappreciated
Sure.
film, but it's not an underrated film.
And so many people go to like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, but he was in Uncle Buck and he killed it in that.
And very closely akin to it is, what was it called with Steve Martin? Great Outdoors?
Oh yeah. Well, oh no, Great Outdoors was Uncle Buck and Dan Aykroyd.
That's sorry, and Dan Aykroyd, sorry. Why did I say Steve Martin?
Maybe
Anyway,
you're thinking
Planes,
of like
trains,
what's that?
planes, trains, and automobiles.
You know, you're right.
Yeah.
That's what was wired in my head there.
I
So,
love that movie
but yes,
too.
Uncle Buck is great.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right. Benji, what are the chances that Deadpool and Wolverine will show up in the upcoming Avengers movie? And which Avengers movie do you think they would appear? Doomsday or Secret Wars? Or
I
both?
do not. I've been very clear about this. I don't think we're ever going to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again. Now, if you're just asking about Wolverine, like not Hugh Jackman Wolverine, yeah, I definitely think it'll be the new Wolverine will be in at very minimum Secret Wars. I don't know if we'll have a new Wolverine by Doomsday. Actually, I feel pretty good just as a fan speculating that we won't see a new Wolverine in Doomsday. And I think it's 50-50 that Ryan Reynolds does Deadpool again. And that's different from what I used to think. I used to think that Marvel isn't going to invest all this time and money in getting Deadpool and Wolverine going if they didn't have some commitment from Ryan Reynolds to do multiple films, right? I don't know if I believe that anymore. I used to believe that pretty strongly, and I don't know if I believe that anymore. I really don't know if we're going to see Ryan as Deadpool again. I certainly hope we do. You guys know I'm an unapologetic, huge Ryan Reynolds fan. But I don't know if we'll see him as that again.
I mean,
I hope we do.
It could be to your point that the reason they even got him was because it was a one and done. And
Yeah,
not 'cause
it
was
might have just been it was a one and done. But I mean, I would say it's a 50-50 shot that we see Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool in either of the new upcoming Avengers movies, but I do not think we're going to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and maybe a 50-50 chance we see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in Secret Wars, but not in Endgame or Doomsday. I mean, that's my purely based on speculation guess. All right, what's next?
Jared says, I agree with you guys about ads before the movie. Went to see a 4 o'clock Brave New World, which had enough plot for 2 movies. On Monday, and it started at 4:30. By the way, may the best team win tonight. And by that, I mean Team USA.
I mean, hey, listen, it's the USA has been carrying Canada's coattails for about 50 years now when it comes to hockey, and they're finally starting to catch up. So, I mean, listen, the first game was great. I mean, obviously, I'm not a big fan of the result of the first game, but it was a great game.
What's it out of? 3 games? Best of 3? Or
Nope,
what?
it's a one and done.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Wow.
one and done.
Did they all have to play all the teams?
It's done. It's now
Yeah,
done.
yeah. But
It
before
was
then,
a round robin
Okay.
situation where each team played each of the other teams, and then the 2 top teams by the end of that play in the gold medal game or the championship game, whatever they're calling it. And as long as we get great hockey, because the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews, is on Team USA.
oh, yeah.
So the captain of my Toronto Maple Leafs. So
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of a rooting interest there too. So clearly I'm cheering for Team Canada, but it's as long as we get a great game and it's good for the game of hockey, then I'm going to be thrilled. And congratulations to the USA. After carrying our coattails for 50 years, you finally started to learn some. You're turning out some pretty decent players. All right, what's next?
Dildar, the Glorious, says, when it comes to Captain Marvel, some people underestimate how strong she really is. Before Thanos used the stone, she literally was invincible to his punches. If he didn't have them, she would have turned him into a grimace-colored stain on the ground.
I don't believe that. I think she gives Thanos a very good fight. Maybe 4 out of 10 times wins. But John, she said, I'm just going to go kill Thanos. Well, that's great. Confidence is wonderful. A lot of guys got into the ring with Mike Tyson saying, I know how to beat Mike Tyson. I'm going to beat Mike Tyson. Didn't turn out so well back in the day. So without stones, the Infinity Stones, Thanos versus Captain Marvel, I think Captain Marvel wins some of the time in 10 fights, but I still think Thanos wins most of them. But that's just my unprovable guess and theory. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, hey, John, fun little tidbit. I interned at a job a few years ago and was there for about a year. I just recently learned that my old boss is actually related to a very famous actress. I won't say who, so it doesn't get traced back, but I can assure you, you know who the actress is. I even thought it was cool how she had the same last name as this particular person, but never imagined they were actually related. Can't believe I went a whole year there without knowing this.
I don't know. That's a big top secret. That actress has sibling. I don't know that you need to keep that a big secret. You know, one of the fun things for me is that when I was at AMC, I loved my boss. I had a great relationship with my boss. His name was Justin Gardner. He was the social media. He was the head of social media for AMC Theaters, and he's the guy who recruited me to work at AMC. And I know this is going to sound like contradictory, but man, me and this guy used to get into screaming. Like, we got into screaming arguments so bad that one time, because AMC's head office is in Kansas, he was in LA, and we were at my apartment, and we were screaming at each other in such a loud vocal argument and fight so loud, I honestly thought my neighbors might call the cops. But John, you said you loved your boss. I did. He and I had that relationship that I think is great creatively, where we can get an issue that we are just on such diametrically opposed positions that we could argue and scream at each other and all that kind of stuff. But once the argument was done, like once we were done talking about that topic, then it's like, all right, let's go get something to eat, you know, and we would go and we would build and create. And I love my boss. Anyway, long story short, he's out in LA. He made many trips to LA. And I remember this one time he's like, let's go. Hey, do you mind if we have dinner with my sister tonight? Yeah, she's in like, what's the name of the comedy troupe? It's not Second City. That's
Groundlings?
That's it. She's part of the Groundlings and stuff like that. And I'm like, sure. Well, let's go. And a couple of times I got to have, over a couple of years, a few times I got to have dinner with him and his sister. His sister's now like the main female lead of Saturday Night Live. I'm forgetting her name now, though. She's in the homes.com commercials.
Yeah, she does all those commercials too.
Yeah, she's in all those commercials. And I'm freezing on the name. I'm freezing on her name right now.
I didn't want to say Julie.
No, I don't think it's Julie.
Or
I think she still has, I think she has her last name Gardner.
Yeah, it's still Gardner.
Is it Heidi Gardner?
Yeah.
Heidi.
Heidi Gardner.
Yeah.
Heidi Gardner. And so it's like, and then, you know, then I remember getting messages from Justin, man, Heidi's actually got an audition with Saturday Night Live. I'm like, that's so cool. And then she went on and she's like the main girl there
she's
now.
Been on it a while.
And yeah, Curtis is right. She's also in Shrinking. So good for her. Anyway. All right. What's next?
All right. Sam Fisher says, the Avatar live action series really left a bad taste in my mouth and killed all my excitement for this series. I know that's completely unreasonable, but that's how I feel. I also don't know if I love the status quo change of 7 Haven cities over 4.
First of all, I don't know what the details are going into it. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think the live action series was half bad.
A lot of people liked it. That's
I
I'm
liked
a little
it.
surprised about.
Now, what was I jumping up and down like I do for Shrinking? Like, oh my God, this Avatar live action series is like the best thing ever. No, but I actually thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. But hey, it's not for everybody. Totally get it. And listen, I understand when something sours you in an IP, it can bring down your overall enthusiasm for that IP, right? So I get it. I totally get where you're coming from. All right, what's next?
Harv's case says, I can't say I'm looking forward to Amazon exploiting the Bond franchise dry with their Bondverse, but if they are going to do spin-offs, do one of the Metal Tooth henchmen Jaws. Maybe a young Jaws team up with hat-tossing odd job.
Okay, I do want to throw something out there, though. Amidst all the people saying, oh, they're going to do all this. Nobody anywhere has said they're going to make 15 different James Bond things.
Mm-hmm.
No one anywhere said that's just something people are making up.
Right.
Now, I think there is merit to doing, like, the way I would want them to do it is keep James Bond 007 to use him rarely, only in high-profile tentpole movies. But then, yeah, expand it a little bit. Like, there's other double O's. Tell the story of other double O's. Tell the story, like Rob was saying, of Spectre. I don't mind that. Like, look what they did with The Boys. I mean, number one, they haven't spun Last of Us out into anything. They did one season, then they waited a couple of years. Now they're doing a second season, right? There's no talk of like them doing 18 different Last of Us things, but they did with The Boys because it worked with The Boys. The Boys wasn't just about one character. The Boys is about this world that has Vought in it. And so there are a lot of other stories to tell. So they spun off Gen V, and that was awesome. So nobody officially is saying that, oh, now we're going to do 5 different James Bond shows and we're going to do 50 different James Bond movies in 6 years. Nobody's saying they're doing that. So instead of getting upset and worried about something, let's wait to see what they actually do first. And then once they decide to do something, let's see how whatever that plan is. Could end up terrible. Could end up great. We'll see. All right, what's next?
Garden Variety says, just read on the BBC that Broccoli and Wilson sold the creative rights for Bond. After the contentious arguments, this doesn't sound good. Daniel Craig had praised them protecting the franchise while giving them an award. Your thoughts?
Again, not everybody was a big fan of the last bunch of movies that the Broccoli's have made. I do, but like, I kind of like No Time to Die. But I didn't think it was one of their stronger films. And what was the one before that? I remember I didn't like the one before that so much. I can't remember.
Spectre?
But maybe it was Spectre I didn't like so much.
Spectre didn't get a lot, and Quantum of Solace, a lot of people didn't.
Yeah,
but...
Quantum of Solace wasn't that great. I loved Casino Royale.
Oh.
I loved Skyfall. I actually didn't mind Spectre. Spectre was the one I didn't mind. But yeah, what was the one you just mentioned, Jonathan?
Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace, not so great. No Time to Die wasn't their strongest outfit.
So the past two
But yeah,
have been...
but you know, somebody like Rob, a big James Bond fan like Rob, didn't actually like the last bunch of things the Broccoli gave us. Maybe they need some kind of new fresh blood in there. And maybe, listen, if Amazon can do for James Bond what they were able to do for The Boys or Fallout or Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, if they can do that and breathe new life into it, great. But let's not pretend everybody universally loved all of the last bunch of Bond films we got. Right. So keep that in mind too.
So he's Craig has been in five films, right? And you didn't like Casino. Oh wait.
No, I love Casino Royale.
Okay. Quantum of Solace.
Not so much.
Skyfall.
Loved it.
Spectre.
Okay.
No Time to Die.
Okay.
So 2 out of the 5 you really like.
I deeply love 2 out of the 5.
Nah, that's not a good one.
And you know, and Rob didn't like it. I mean, I was surprised that Rob didn't even like Skyfall.
Yeah.
I think Skyfall is amazing. But yeah, again, let's just keep in mind that it's like, it's not as if the James Bond franchise has been the MCU in the first 3 phases, and all of a sudden Kevin Feige left and handed it over to somebody else.
Right.
The James Bond franchise lately has been hit and miss. And again, maybe it's time that it needs some new creative blood behind it.
That's what I was going to ask. So you think it's probably time that someone...
It's probably
take
time.
A shot at it.
It's to take a shot. It doesn't mean it's going to work. Never does. But maybe it will. All right. What's next?
Zero Pop says, regarding Bond, to quote another franchise, I have a bad feeling about this. Aside from the MCU, the track of big companies taking creative control of beloved IP is spotty at best. Good luck, 007. I hope they get somebody good.
HBO Max took over Last of Us. Turned out great. Amazon took over Fallout. Turned out great. Amazon took over The Boys. Turned out great. I wouldn't say it's spotty. I wouldn't say that the track record is spotty. It's not 100%.
Yeah.
Of course not. There are definitely some high profile losses as well. But guess what? James Bond's recent history has been spotty while being under the control of the Broccoli's. So you might as well try something different. All right, what's next?
All right. Raymond Verada says, with Amazon taking control of Bond, can there be an American Bond or a Bond driving a Tesla? Is philandering, martini drinking, baccarat, playing secret agent still relevant in our times? But he didn't play baccarat. He played poker.
Yeah, well, in
Casino Royale.
In Casino Royale.
Yeah.
I think the diehard rule that Bond has to be like Bond will always be British, but that doesn't mean the actor playing him has to be. Actors play things they aren't in real life. Go figure. Right? It doesn't have to be. Now, the Broccoli's were pretty stern about that, but doesn't mean Amazon has to be. As long as Bond is British, I don't give two flying shits about what the actor is who plays them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think the guy who plays Hitler in a movie is actually a Nazi? No, they play things they aren't in real life. Do you think Christoph Waltz is actually a Jew hunter? No, he's an actor playing something different in a movie. So it's fine. But yeah, I do believe they're going to keep some of those core qualities of Bond, even though some of his core qualities are very antiquated and outdated. And as long as they highlight that, I think it can still be compelling. All right, what's next?
Okay, we got Ronetta W, one of two. What's up, crew? Amazon is on a roll. They're restricting your Kindle books. If you bought a book digitally, make sure you download it to USB or PC. If you don't, anything can be edited, taken away, or removed at any time, just like streaming. Double-edged sword, you have until February 26th to complete. They're showing tutorials on YouTube on how to do it. Save your shit, because anything can be edited digitally without your knowledge. This day and age, facts matter. Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, I'm not terribly concerned about it myself personally, because that has been a reality of streaming and movies and stuff like that for many years now already. And the most egregious, awful thing that's been done was in Splash, they edited out Daryl Hannah's bare ass. And that's been the thing that's caused the most outrage. So until things happen that are truly concerning, I'm not going to worry. Now, once it does, then that becomes a new discussion. But so far, we've kind of been living under that specter for a long time, for many years now already. And it hasn't really been anything all that drastic that's been done. Now, if it does start to happen, that'll be another conversation.
When she says editing, does that mean the author of the actual book or anybody? Like the author. I'm assuming like anybody.
As long as the author, if the author still owns the rights to their books.
Right.
Yeah, like if an author owns the rights to their books, and most authors do, Amazon doesn't have the right to go in and start changing the author's words unless at some point Amazon literally bought the IP from the writer.
Oh,
but, yeah.
Okay. Then they could change. Yeah. Okay.
And then if the creator wants to change something of their own creation, that's fine. Listen, I hate most of the changes done in the Star Wars Special Edition, right? Like, I really don't like... There are some changes that are pretty good, but I really don't like most of the changes that George Lucas did in the Special Edition. But you know what I have no problem with? That George Lucas did them.
Yep.
It's his movie. It's his work. It's his art. And if the creator wants to change something about his own work, he's got the right to do it. I don't have to like it, but I'm totally good with him having the right to do it. All right, what's next?
I Am Justice says, so Amazon now has Bond in their grip. Well, there goes any remaining integrity the franchise had. You guys are such, like, you quit so quickly. Get ready for spin-off shows. First, a gadget show, Man or Myth, The Adventures of Young Bond, and Felix Story.
Again, everybody's acting like Amazon hasn't absolutely crushed it. Again, everybody's pretending Bosch doesn't exist. Everybody's pretending Man in the High Castle doesn't exist. Everybody's pretending like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which won tons of Emmys, doesn't
People
exist.
just hate change, and the fact that they got it.
People are scared of change.
They're just like, oh no, everything's ruined, and all the things that I would hate to see. That's what. How do you know that the things you hate to see are the things that Amazon execs already know about and want to plan?
Yeah, look, and again, I just want to remind everybody. Everybody might forget this, but I remember it. Rob remembers it. When it got announced that Amazon was taking The Boys, a lot of people had never heard of The Boys, but all those who did was like, Amazon's going to ruin The Boys. How'd that turn out? Boys is one of the best things on TV. When it got announced that Amazon was going to do Fallout, it's going to suck because Amazon's doing it. How'd Fallout turn out? Literally got nominated for the highest prize in television, Best Drama at the Emmys it got nominated for. How'd that turn out? Has everything been perfect? Absolutely not. Look at season 1 of Rings of Power. Listen, I almost tapped out of that series 2 episodes in. Now, I think they turned it around a lot in season 2. Season 2 was definitely a lot better than season 1, but season 1 was really not good. Had a few things going for it, but it really wasn't good. So perfect? No. But here's the reality. You want to start adding up a scorecard? Amazon's got a lot more wins than losses. So, all I'm saying is, it could end up being great, it could end up being bad. But this mentality that every single Bond film of the past 15 years has been gold, which it hasn't been, and if Amazon takes it over, it's automatically means it's going to be bad. Based on what? Fallout? Marvel's Mrs. Maisel? The Boys? Gen V? Look, I'm just telling you that Amazon, if you want to add up a scorecard, Amazon has a lot more wins than losses. So I think it's, to put it gently, I think it's irrationally premature to start saying that, oh, this is an automatic loss. Why? Because No Time to Die was such an all-time classic?
Yeah.
Why? Because Fallout ended up so bad? I just think coming out here, I think it would be premature to come out and say, this is going to be the greatest James Bond ever. That would be radically premature. But I think it's equally radically premature to come out and say, well, this is terrible. Based on what? The Broccoli's have been slipping. It needs some new fresh blood. And Amazon, would I rather have heard that James Bond went to HBO? Yes, I would have rather heard that James Bond went to HBO. But is it the worst thing in the world to find out that the new creative blood is going to be Amazon, who like Jonathan Nolan is working with and all this kind of stuff? I just think this negativity is irrationally premature. But, we'll see how it all turns out. All right, what's next?
Alex Pitt, the Oscars are being broadcast live in the cinema here in the UK, complete with pre-show movie quiz and an Oscar and ballot. Prizes go to whoever gets the most. It finishes at 4 a.m., but count me in.
Woohoo! I do like that. I like that. I mean, first of all, Ann and I both love Oscar parties. We haven't done our Oscar parties like the first 10 years of our marriage. We always did like big Oscar parties and we used to love them. We haven't done them a lot in the last 5 years, but I do love those big events. I'll probably watch them at home, but still, I love events like that. I think that's great. All right, what's next?
We got Iman the Discipliner. James Gunn has all the class. He just posted on his Instagram a photo of him and Zack Snyder just hanging out. Called Zack a consummate, skilled filmmaker. I'm excited to see how this triggers the fans.
I'm excited to see how
They should like it.
You remember what happened when, what was the name of the director of the first Suicide Squad movie again?
Oh, yeah.
Ayer.
David Ayer. Right. Like now, remember, there is a difference between Snyder fans and Snyder bros, right? There's a big difference. Like Snyder fans, I am a Snyder fan, but then you got these fanatical, extremist Snyder bro things, right? The Snyder bros were all fans of David Ayer, right? They were doing that. Now release the Ayer cut, people, right? But then the moment that David Ayer came out and said, hey, I'm excited for the new James Gunn DC universe. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. They fucking turned on him. I'm going to be curious to see if the Snyder bros turn on Snyder now. I'm just curious. I'm curious to see if the Snyder bros turn on Snyder.
Who would they have? It's like, who do you have then when you destroy your own leader? It's like, Snyder isn't real Snyder.
Yeah. It's just gonna be interesting to see if what that. And by the way, like, I think if he's not in charge of a script, I just still to this day, like, forget about the god awful Rebel Moon movies. Okay, those are terrible. Granted. I still think Zack Snyder is one of the most gifted visual storytellers. He's got such vision for visuals and how to visually tell a story. I think if you get a movie where somebody else is completely in control of the script, which is what most movies are, like somebody else is in control of the script, then they hand it to the director, and the director tries to bring it to life, right? That's the hard part, bringing it to life. Not that writing a good script isn't hard. That's very hard too. But I think in a scenario where a finished polished script is then taken to Zack Snyder, and Zack Snyder then just visualizes and bring that script to life, I would be so excited for any new Zack Snyder project. I just think he's a really gifted visual storyteller. His strong suit isn't script. His strong suit is not story. But you give him the story, man, he can bring it to life like few others. So I'd be very interested in that. All right, what's next?
Here's our last of the tips. Ronetta says, Reacher is back. Yeah, I missed this show. And Daredevil in 2 weeks. 2 nicely wrapped gifts with 2 hunky men. For my birthday coming up in March.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Reacher is also an Amazon show, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Reacher, Amazon. There
Yep,
you
they're
go.
going to ruin Reacher. How's Reacher turned out? Pretty good. Yeah, by the way, Rob came in and said, "Oh, I watched the first episode of Reacher." I'm like, I didn't even realize it came back yet. So yeah, that's on my dance car sometime today. I got to watch. Maybe after the hockey game later, I'm going to have to watch myself the new Reacher.
All right.
All right, what's next?
We got some members here. King Daddy Goat says, hey, crew, watched The Faculty last night and didn't realize how many semi-big names was in that film. I'm excited for the remake coming for sure. What's your guys' thoughts on The Faculty? I love The Faculty. That was...
Was that Devin Sawa? I'm just kidding.
No, that was, what's his name? Who was also in... Wait. He was also in Fringe, right? He was in The Faculty. Like the main guy
Oh,
from...
right. Salma Hayek. There's Salma Hayek. There's Josh Hartnett. Elijah
What's
Wood.
the name of the
Elijah
guy
Wood.
from Fringe?
Elijah Wood.
Who was the main guy in Fringe?
What, Fringe?
Yeah.
Wasn't that also the main guy from Dawson's Creek?
Yes, was
Joshua
he not,
Jackson.
Yeah, wasn't he in Faculty?
I'm gonna
or am I
look-
I
thinking
don't
of
think
somebody
so.
I
else?
don't
I
feel
don't
like
think
Joshua
so.
Jackson was in
For
The
some
Faculty.
reason, I had it in my brain that Joshua Jackson was in Faculty.
Maybe he's in the one that I said.
No, it was
Devin
Josh
Sawa.
Hartnett and,
Maybe it's Josh Hartnett I was thinking
Yeah.
of.
Elijah
But I
Wood.
had it in my brain that it was Joshua Jackson for some reason.
It's
That
such
was
an old
Josh-
movie. That's why.
Yeah, I was never the biggest fan of it, to be honest. I don't dislike it.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
I might have to go back and give it a rewatch though at some point here.
Yeah, because I don't remember.
Now David D's saying yes, he was.
Oh, he was.
No, and then somebody else says Josh Hartnett and Elijah Wood were in the fact.
Yeah, I just looked at IMDb. He's not listed unless it was a small role.
Yeah, so I was probably, my brain cavities were probably mixing up Hartnett and
plus,
Jackson.
like, if you look, a lot of the posters look like the other movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, never mind.
All right, what's next?
Emmanuel says, hey, team, what could be more likely, She-Hulk appearing in the next Avengers movie or the new Black Panther?
New Black Panther by a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I really think we should see She-Hulk again. Again, the show was bad. The show ended up being bad. But the character was great. And the actress playing the character, Tatiana Maslany, is great. So I just, the writing around that show was so bad, but I really think that character should return. But I think it's more likely the new Black Panther. All right, what's next?
We got unofficial something or other. Currently filing petitions for work while listening. Thanks for making work entertaining. What are you currently reading? I'm reading Carmilla by LaFanu. Are you reading anything right now?
Which one's that?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, the one I got loaded up on my iPad right now is the Marvel book, the one that came out like 2 years ago. Sorry, I got to go into my Amazon thing now.
I'm
tell you what
about
it
to
is.
start reading Wool, which is the first book in the Silo series.
Oh, really? I'm not reading any fiction right now. I actually, you know what? To be honest with you, I haven't read a fiction in a while. Like the last 3 or 4 books that I've read have all just been based on real stuff, like the background story. But I haven't read a fiction book in a while. I tried, what's that fantasy series that everybody's talking about?
Oh yeah, I know what you're
Like,
but I don't know.
There's a big fantasy series that's like 5 or 6 books in right now, and people tried to get me onto that. And so I picked up the first one, and I got like a bit into it. I'm like, I don't think this is not being put together well. I can't even follow what's
Someone
going on.
said Way of Kings.
That might be it. Stormlight Archive. Stormlight Archive. Yeah, like it's very, very popular and people seem to love it. But I was on this thing for about 20 minutes and I'm like, this is just so all over the place. And I just kind of tapped out of it. But everybody else says it's really good. I might have to give that one another shot sometime.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Got Nathan who says, "Hey John, with all the current interest in UFOs and the upcoming projects from Spielberg, Kaczynski, and Bruckheimer, it seems to be the perfect time to remake two of my childhood favorites. Well, The Last Starfighter I'm in for. Let's do it. The Last Starfighter and Flight of the Navigator. What do you think of the chances that we'll see either of these reimagined?"
Here's why The Last Starfighter is a much better candidate. It's a movie that translates in today's world much better than, say, Flight of the Navigator. Listen, I, like everybody else, have a very fond place in my heart for Flight of the Navigator. But the reason why I've been saying for well over a decade that The Last Starfighter should absolutely be remade is because that is a movie, we are currently living in the era that movie should have come out in. Right?
Yeah.
That is a movie whose story is perfect, built around the whole idea of video games, which is way more relevant today than it was back then. And it could vastly be improved with modern technology and using those tools that the storytellers could have now. The Last Starfighter is absolutely a movie that should be remade.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope they do.
Even if they have to break canon.
There is no canon.
There's no
Yeah,
canon.
because it's The Last Starfighter. It should have been the last one, right?
Well, this would
Well,
now
they-
be a new story of the
A new
last
story.
one.
Takes
Not a
place
sequel.
now.
Not a sequel.
Yeah.
Never
Just a
mind.
remake.
Good job.
All right, guys. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported our channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you so much for your support. I want to thank the guys in the room with me, Ray Ora,
See you guys tomorrow.
Jonathan Voico.
Guys.
Big thanks to, of course, Chris Carr and Robert Meyer Burnett. My name's John Campea, everybody. Thanks a lot for being here. And until next time, my friends, sex cruise.
God.